sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, so today we are going to do a deep dive on some news that could actually hit your wallet pretty hard. And maybe even shake up the world as we know it.
Absolutely.
A little bit.
Yeah.
We are looking at President Trump's newly announced tariffs.
Yeah.
And we've got this PBS NewsHour piece and its transcript.
Yes.
But from what we're seeing, it looks like this is going to hit our neighbors a lot harder than it hits China.
It seems that way, yeah. Mexico and Canada.
Yeah, Mexico and Canada harder than China.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, when they hear tariffs, they're like,
right.
Oh, this is boring. I don't even know what a tariff is.
Sure.
But trust me, this is important.
Absolutely.
Because we're not talking about like little tiny price bumps here.
No.
We are talking about things that could make everything from your groceries to your new car.
Your everyday purchases.
Way more expensive.
Yeah. Well, a tariff is basically a tax on imported goods.
Right.
So when the U.S. puts a 25% tariff on something like avocados from Mexico, that cost gets passed down to the consumer.
Right.
And all of a sudden, that guacamole at your favorite restaurant is going to take a much bigger bite out of your budget.
So I get the avocado example, but
Right.
25%, that seems
It's a lot.
really extreme.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking 25% on avocado.
No, this is a lot of goods.
We are talking a whole range of goods.
Yes, a broad
It's
sponsor.
Mexico and Canada.
That's right.
And then on top of that, 10% more on everything from China.
It's a significant increase, for sure.
Yeah, so that's adding a lot of cost to things.
Well, the Tax Foundation, which is a nonpartisan group that analyzes tax policies, estimates that these new tariffs could end up costing the average U.S. household an extra $830 per year.
$830.
Per year.
That's not nothing.
No, that's significant.
I mean, for a lot of people, that's a couple of tanks of gas.
Sure.
Or like a nice chunk of a vacation fund.
Absolutely, it adds up.
I'm really curious what kind of ripple effect this could have.
Yeah.
I mean, these are our allies.
Right.
That we are hitting pretty hard with these tariffs.
Well, Canada's Prime Minister Trudeau has already said that Canada's going to respond forcefully. But reasonably.
Forcefully, but reasonably.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we're your friends, but don't mess with us.
Exactly. It's a measured response.
Yeah.
But a firm one.
Yeah. So it sounds like President Trump is really trying to protect
it seems that
American industries here. I mean, I understand the idea of wanting to support local businesses and jobs.
Of course.
But could this backfire?
Well, it's certainly a tricky balancing act. On the one hand, you have the potential to boost domestic production by making foreign goods more expensive. But on the other hand, you risk starting a trade war.
A trade war?
Yes.
That sounds intense. What does that mean?
Well, basically, when one country imposes tariffs, other countries
often retaliate with their own tariffs. And this can escalate pretty quickly and lead to higher prices for consumers. Disruptions in those global supply chains we were talking about. And even potentially economic instability.
So it's like everyone is trying to
it can be,
one-up each other with the tariffs.
Right.
Hoping that somebody will blink first.
Kind of a game of chicken.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of things getting a little messy, this whole tariff announcement actually happened at the same time.
Yes, it did.
As another big piece of news.
It did.
This one involving potential shakeups within the FBI and the Department of Justice.
That's right. The Associated Press is reporting that some prosecutors involved in the January 6th riot cases might be dismissed, along with some who were involved in investigations of President Trump himself.
Okay, that's a whole other can of worms.
It is.
I mean, messing with global trade is one thing.
But potentially firing investigators working on such sensitive cases.
Very sensitive.
That feels like a whole other...
It's a different level.
Of, I don't even know what to call it.
It's definitely raising eyebrows.
Yeah.
Especially because when asked about these potential firings, President Trump seemed unaware of them at first, but then seemed to endorse the idea moments later.
So on one hand, we have potential economic upheaval with these tariffs.
Yes.
And on the other hand, we have potential political turmoil.
Right.
With these possible firings.
Absolutely. A lot to unpack.
It feels like we were watching a political thriller.
It does feel that way sometimes.
Unfold in real time.
Yeah, it really highlights how interconnected things are.
Yeah.
How decisions in one area, like trade policy, can have ripple effects in seemingly unrelated areas, like domestic investigations.
Interesting.
Yeah. It makes you wonder how these tariffs could actually end up impacting, our everyday lives. We've talked about supply chains.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure everybody really understands what that means.
I'll admit, supply chain is one of those phrases that I hear a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure I could explain it to someone. Like, what does it actually look like,
Think about something you probably have in your hand right now.
Okay.
Your smartphone.
Okay.
It's not like all made in one place.
Right.
All those components come from all over the world.
Okay.
The screen might be from Japan, the processor from Taiwan.
Yeah.
The battery from China.
Right.
All these pieces kind of travel through this complex network of suppliers and manufacturers and shippers before it gets to you.
So are you saying that these tariffs could, disrupt that whole process?
Oh, absolutely. If the cost of those components goes up because of tariffs, that cost gets passed along at every step of the way.
Okay.
It could mean that the final price of your next phone is significantly higher, or it could even lead to shortages if companies can't get the parts they need.
So it's not just about a few things getting more expensive.
No.
It could actually change how we even access products that we rely on every single day. And it kind of makes you wonder if this whole tariff strategy could end up hurting American consumers more
potentially
than it helps.
It's always a risk.
Yeah, like a global trade war.
Exactly. When countries start throwing up these trade barriers, it creates this ripple effect throughout the whole global economy.
Right.
Prices go up, demand falls, and ultimately everybody suffers.
So it's not just about protecting American businesses. It's about figuring out how to compete.
It's finding that balance.
Globally.
Yeah.
Without hurting ourselves in the process.
Exactly.
And it feels like things are getting even more complicated because you've got these potential firings.
Yes. Those potential firings are definitely a cause for concern.
At the FBI and the Department of Justice.
Yeah. Remember, we're talking about investigators involved in the January 6th riot cases and investigations related to President Trump himself.
Right. And so removing them from those cases could be seen as an attempt to obstruct justice.
It could be perceived that way.
Or to shield certain people.
Potentially, yeah.
From scrutiny.
Yeah.
And wouldn't that shake people's faith?
I think it would.
In the justice system.
Yeah.
I mean, if it looks like people in power are interfering with investigations, it really undermines the idea of a fair and impartial process.
Absolutely. Transparency and accountability are crucial for maintaining that public trust in institutions like the FBI and the Department of Justice. If those principles are perceived to be compromised, it can really have a corrosive effect on our whole system of government.
It feels like we're talking about two huge things.
Yeah, it is a lot.
Fear global trade and then the integrity of our justice system. And they're happening.
They're happening simultaneously.
At the same time.
At the same time.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really underscores just how delicate that balance of power is in a democracy.
Okay.
We rely on this system of checks and balances, on independent institutions that can hold those in power accountable. When those systems are threatened, it's a signal that we need to be paying very close attention.
Absolutely. So where do we go from here? I mean, it feels like we're in uncharted territory with these tariffs and these potential firings and just all this uncertainty swirling around.
Well, I think the key takeaway here is that we can't just sit back and be passive observers.
Yeah.
This isn't just something happening out there. These events have the potential to impact our lives in very real ways.
So what can we do? I mean, besides just feeling overwhelmed by all of this?
Well, first and foremost, stay informed. Okay.
Don't just rely on headlines or social media.
Yeah.
Dig a little deeper. Read articles from a variety of sources.
To be more critical of the information that we're consuming.
Be a critical consumer of information.
Okay.
Don't just accept everything you read or hear at face value.
Yeah.
Ask questions, challenge assumptions, and be willing to consider viewpoints that might differ from your own.
It's easy to just get stuck in your own echo chamber.
It is, yeah.
But that doesn't really help you understand.
No, it doesn't.
What's actually going on.
And remember, staying informed isn't just about passively absorbing information.
Right.
It's about using that knowledge to make informed decisions.
So, like, what kind of decisions are we talking? Like, how we vote, where we shop?
It can be all those things.
Or, like, something else entirely.
For example, if you're concerned about the impact of tariffs, you might choose to support businesses that prioritize fair trade practices. Or you might contact your elected officials to express your concerns about potential trade wars or the erosion of trust in government institutions.
So it's about taking that knowledge.
It is.
And actually, like, translating it into action.
That's right.
Whether that's how we shop or how we vote or even just the conversations we have with people.
Sometimes just having those conversations, raising awareness, encouraging critical thinking can be a really powerful form of action in itself.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's empowering to think that we're not just powerless bystanders.
Exactly. We're not.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into tariffs and trade and just the potential for some serious political tremors, I want to leave our listeners with something to ponder.
Okay.
A question that you posed that I think really gets at the heart of this whole thing.
Yeah.
In a world that is becoming increasingly interconnected,
Yeah.
can any nation truly isolate itself through these trade barriers and internal shakeups without facing some pretty serious unintended consequences?
Wow.
And if so, at what cost?
That is a great question, and one that I think we're all going to be thinking about
For a while.
So to our amazing listeners out there, stay curious.
Absolutely.
Stay engaged.
Stay informed.
And let's keep exploring these really complicated issues.
Yes, let's do it.
Together, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of.